I would like to give the word to the head of Özgür Der Foundation, Mr. Rıdvan Kaya. Please, sir. I would like to greet you all. Dear brothers and sisters, may Allah's peace and greetings be upon you. Here we are gathered to talk about the Caucasus, and in this first session, hopefully we will shed light on the background of the struggle that is still going on in the Caucasus. The Caucasus, as you know, since 16th century has been subject to colonialism. This colonial power was first Tsarist Russia, and then it evolved into Soviet Russia, and now it's the empire of Putin, and it is oppressing this region of Caucasus. And unfortunately, the suffering has still not ceased. Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq, many countries in our geography is being oppressed because of their demands to live their Islamic identity to the fullest extent. The name of the oppressor changes. Sometimes it's Russia, sometimes it's the States, sometimes it's China, and sometimes it's powers that collaborate with these oppressors. And unfortunately, people living in this geography suffer and they are tormented. And for 400 years now, the people of Caucasus have been resisting this oppression. And as we speak, the occupation and pressure and oppression is rampant. And in this geography, it goes without saying that this geography also has exhibited resistance. So our history is not a history of oppression only. The peoples of Caucasus are still struggling and still exhibiting resistance, and we would like to salute all of these kindred spirits. Now, the occupation is still underway, and here we are to talk about the background of the struggle that the peoples of Caucasus are engaged in. Thanks to this session, hopefully we will be able to understand better the background of this struggle. I would like to give Alev Erkilet the word, but I would like to ask all of the speakers to kindly confine themselves to 20 minutes, and I will kindly remind them that their time is running up 5 minutes prior to the closing of their speech. And Ms. Alev is going to now talk about the background of this struggle, and he is one of the few experts in Turkey, and she's been studying this struggle, the history of the struggle of the people of Caucasus, and she is also going to talk about this jihad movement, and she's been working with immigrants that have come to Turkey, and I would like to thank her once again for all her efforts, and I would like to give her the word. Thank you very much for this kind introduction. I would like to say welcome to each and every one of you. Actually, I am right now taking a great responsibility, I feel. Maybe that's because I'm the only speaker from Turkey, and also as someone who has worked in this field, and also as someone who has had personal links with the people in the region, I feel that I'm taking a great responsibility, and I'm hoping that I will not fail in this endeavor. We talked about the period of the imams, but I would like to set out at the beginning that I'm not a historian, but I'm a sociologist, and of course I can and I will tell you certain things about the period of the imams, but what I would like to do actually is to exhibit the continuity all throughout the history in this region, and this continuity is also can also be seen as an effort to set an Islamic union in the region. So yes, there's continuity, but sometimes there are divergences and transformations due to several different factors in the region, and this transformation needs to be dissected, and we need to look into the social factors that contribute to this disintegration or disunification in the region. You all know the Ghazawat history in the region. It all started with Imam Mansur, and during the time of Imam Mansur, there were certain struggles that were initiated, and during the inauguration of the 1917 Republic and afterwards, the same determination was carried on from one generation to another. As Rıdvan Bey also talked about, the reality of the Caucasus can only be appreciated if we understand the colonial motives of the Russian Empire. So the Russian colonialism needs to be understood first, and the Chechen, Dagestan, and Caucasus, other Caucasus people's struggles against this power needs to be understood. So from the outset, I think we need to recognize the workings of the Russian Empire and how it imposes its power on the peoples of the Caucasus, because all of the movements after Imam Mansur are basically movements against the Russian invasionist colonial power. Basically, people have been saying that if we really truly want to be Muslims and live as Muslims, we need to raise our voice against the Russian powers. And this was ignited by Imam Mansur because the Russians at the time were promising certain freedoms to the peoples, and they're still making these false claims. So within the framework of self-determination and within the framework of other concepts, they're alleging that they will give freedom of faith and conscience to the peoples of the Caucasus, but this is given at the expense of political dependence. And Imam Mansur and his followers, all the Islamic social movements have been advocating for full political independence in order to live a true Islamic life. This is very relevant, not just for Caucasus, but for other regions in the world, and for Muslims that are living under captivity in other regions in the world. And these people are promised certain freedoms at the expense of independence. Instead of accepting this cultural identity that is determined by others, and in this case Russians, we should move towards true independence. And this framework was first initiated by Imam Mansur. That's why he is so important. He cooperated with many sects in the region, and he incorporated these sects or these orders in his political struggle and raised the flag of Ghazawat. He, as an imam, was also a political figure, and he was the spearhead of a jihad. That's why Imam Mansur is so important and so relevant in this day and age. And I believe that his struggle and his legacy still lives on, and I believe that we need to understand him to make sense of the struggle that's being experienced in the region today. So what has Imam Mansur done in the region? I would like to reiterate. He stood up against an international motive, an international movement of oppression. He said, no, we will not be practicing Islam under your sovereignty. We need to be truly independent in order to fully practice our region. That's why we need to bring together all the peoples in the region under one same flag, as an independent entity to truly live and experience Islam. And that's why this method, this option has been opted out over the others. The unified Caucasus all throughout the history has been based on Islamic ideals. All these small states and republics need to come together in order to fully experience their religious identities. And after Imam Mansur, we see that, well, peoples like Caucasus are dispersed all throughout the region. They speak different languages, and due to several different reasons, sometimes they engage in conflicts with each other. And Imam Mansur was the first person to say that we need to set aside our differences if we would like to create a union, an Islamic Caucasus union. We need to set aside our differences. And from the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea, in this region, we need to set up a union. And this was first voiced by Imam Mansur. I do not wish to go into details, but after Imam Mansur there was Imam Ghazi, and he is a significant historical figure as well. The same theme, that is to say, the unified Caucasus, full independence, are still concepts that are relevant around his time. But there were other religious conflicts during his time. There were two sheikhs at the time, Sheikh Muhammad Yerayi and Sheikh Jamaluddin, were important figures during the time of this second Imam. Jalaluddin and Muhammaddin are two different figures, because one of them advocated, well, he gave up on jihad and he implored the other to do so, whereas the other Imam gave legitimacy to this struggle and advocated that the struggle needs to continue. And still this dichotomy continues in the Caucasus region. A religious battle is being oppressed or is being suppressed with the guise of religion. And then there is the legendary Imam Shamil. This person actually is the one who waged war for this ideal. And this Caucasus state that we're talking about today was first initiated by him, and that's why he is so legendary. In all the interviews that I conducted with people in the region, people voiced their eternal gratitude to Shamil. Shamil is important because of a couple of reasons, and here's what I would like to say. Since Imam Mansur, this dream of a unified Caucasus was realized by Shamil, because he set up a substantial army, and for 30 years on end he continued his struggle, and for the very first time he set up the social and religious structure for an Islamic state. And here we would like to also, I should also like to talk about the social importance of this struggle. For the very first time during Imam Shamil's period, the Holy Quran was translated into local languages, and this enabled people to understand our religion better. And also mosques and masjids were opened in the region, and many weapons and arms were put together to wage this war against suppression. Also, invitations were sent out to the region, and many peoples were invited to be a part of this Islamic struggle. Of course, he is a bit of a rough figure, and he is a bit of a he's a bit of a brute figure, and that's why he he was perceived as being a bit violent, but due to certain circumstances, this was how he had to function. But for the very first time, he made sure that a law, Sharia law, was implemented within the society, and he gathered certain different elements of the society within the framework of Islam. So I don't think we should set the date starting from 1917, because after the Tsarist structure collapsed, there was a political vacuum, and the peoples of the Caucasus had to come together, and Shamil brought these people together, but unfortunately he didn't have the time to sit down and theorize about certain concepts, because there was an imminent Russian invasion, and basically he did what he could. And then I believe that 1990s are also equally, if not more important. Why is this period so relevant, so important? Because the outer world can be, well, especially Islamic world, did not attach necessary importance to the struggle, because this was seen as a nationalistic independence struggle, because they said that Ummah is important, not the nation. But also this was seen not as a Chechen movement or a Dagestan movement, but as a movement that serves the interests of other powers that be. That's why certain Islamic figures wanted to put distance between themselves and the struggle. And these two perceptions are wrong, I believe. And this struggle that is being going on in the Caucasus actually is a continuation of the struggle that was ignited back in 1917. What are the principles of and ideals of this movement? After the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was an opportunity to set up a new state, and the Russians said, no, you don't need full independence. Just like Lenin said previously, Poland can be independent because the society has completed the evolution, but Islamic societies have not evolved in leaps and bounds. That's why they can only be afforded partial independence. This is what was said to us, but the Muslims said, no, we reject to become a satellite state. We reject partial independence. Just like Imam Shamil said, they said we aspire to achieve a fully independent Islamic state. And this was the discourse in the beginning of the 1990s, but they had to make use of their national identity at the time, and also for a very long time their ties with Islam and Quran were were um, were sort of destroyed. And but this does not mean that they were not believers, even for ceremonials like even for funeral ceremonies, even they saw funeral ceremonies as opportunities to learn and refresh their memories about religions, their religion. For hundreds of years, their ties with Islam were severed, and every time they get back up on their feet, the first lifeline that they held on to was Islam. So basically, after the 90s, they got back up on their feet and they renewed their ties with Islam. But why did not? Why did they not do this through other means other than nationalism? They simply couldn't afford this because it's just like Imam Ghazi Muhammad and Isam Mahsun's time. Unlike those times, the orders and the religious sects sided with status quo, and just like the schism between Imam Shamil in the 1990s, the orders and the sects lost their footing and lost their transformative power within the society. That's why something new had to be done. That's why Islam had to be defined through new tenets. And the legacy of the Islamic movements in the world were introduced to the people of Caucasus. The Holy Quran was translated, and the political movements in the Middle East were translated into local languages. Imam Azam's jihad discourse were also translated into local languages, and also the experiences within the Afghan jihad. All of this accumulation was transported to the region, and a new perception and a new conception of religion and Islam was created in the region, and there was this great revival, and this was very important and very significant in the region. Because these religious themes took hold in the region after this process. So basically, the main struggle was never against Russia or the Russian ideology, because the Russian ideology was always rejected. But from now on, I think the core of our struggle thrives on focusing on the union in the region. And in order to achieve this union, we need to look inside this region. There are certain processes that reject this union in the region. I know this very well. There are certain discourses that are used because Circassians and other religious groups do not intermarry. Some people claim that some of their offsprings are not Muslims. So all of these unfounded allegations are used to bring these people apart. Even in the time of Sheikh Shamil, there were movements for a unionized Caucasus region, and there were Muslims coming in from Anatolia to support the peoples in the region. But we need to clear our minds, and we need to set aside our differences, because otherwise we cannot appreciate the facts of history. All throughout the history, there were people, supporters coming to support this jihad in the Caucasus region. And in the 20th century, this was repeated in the second half of 1990s, and this is nothing new. So this thesis of full independence is also nothing new. This union of Islamic Caucasus is nothing new, is not a new concept, but a unionized or unified Caucasus is a struggle that is part of the Islamic struggle. It is a leg of a wider struggle. And I believe this point is very important. We're not talking about an ethnic struggle here or a cultural struggle. We're not talking about Dagestan or Chechens or other local ethnicities. We are talking about an Islamic cause, not an ethnic cause. That's why when we are talking about an Islamic Caucasus state, we should be talking about or we should go back back to the 16th century, and this is a struggle that has been going on since then, and it will continue in the future. I know my time is up, but on a last note, I would like to say that Caucasian people may be limited in number, and Russians are slaughtering these people, committing genocide in the region, and even when the Caucasian struggle seems silent, the struggle is still going on. Sometimes the population goes below 1 million, and sometimes the war, the struggle comes to a halt because there's an imminent risk of annihilation. But this is an intermission, basically, and the struggle will continue. And sometimes the waters may seem silent and safe, but I believe that in the future, the struggle will continue with great determination and great speed. So I would like to conclude my remarks here because my time is up. Maybe if we have a Q&A session later on, I can answer your questions. Thank you very much for your patience.